Listen, we are going to chat because Christmas is coming up, and whilst we've had the fun side of Christmas we've been talking about when I was talking to Steve Denyer, 1 in 3 households with children will struggle to afford Christmas. Now, we should always be wary of statistics and samples and surveys, but broadly speaking, I think the findings of this survey from debt charity StepChange, I think they go to the heart of the challenge of the cost of living crisis for many people. Not everyone, by any means. What it means is what we're essentially saying, that there's going to be nearly 1 million people who will effectively not be able to afford Christmas in a nutshell. There's more people, 4 million, will be relying on credit. Now, the cost of living is an issue. The contrast is that there's an us and them situation where I think there's an awful lot of people like me who still see the restaurants full, who still see the trains full, who still see people spending. But for some out there, I think it's really hard. And I want to just deliver into this what this means for the individual and also kind of what's going on in the shops. What are they seeing and how is Christmas for them? To join me, it is the marvellous Catherine Zeta-Jones. No, it's not. It's Lizzie Zita, retail expert, star of YouTube, endless channels. Lovely to have you here.
Lovely to be here.
So look, give us a picture of what Christmas is like, both for the retailers at the moment, but actually for this cohort of people that we're talking about.
Well, for the retailers, there's been a suppression in the amount that's been sold. It's down 0.6%. Final figures have not come out yet, but people are struggling. They are spending less. Most people wanted to finish their Christmas shopping after Black Friday, but people are just spending less, and people are getting more and more into debt, which is a real concern.
They mentioned 4 million here,
yes.
But I don't know who are relying on credit. I mean, choosing credit is one thing, relying on credit is another issue.
Well, that's the problem, because it gets so many people into trouble. I mean, many years ago when I was very young and really foolish and I knew everything, I got into trouble with my credit card.
Yeah,
I spent too much.
Me too, yeah.
And it's very difficult to climb out of that, but more and more people are using credit.
At high interest rates.
At very high interest rates, and it's a concern. It's a concern because, you know, everybody wants to have a good time at Christmas. There's a tremendous amount of pressure. I think, you know, 46% of adults said they would buy less food this Christmas, according to the Office of National Statistics.
I mean, if I was being a cynic there,
yes,
right, I'd say, well, people buy far too much food at Christmas anyway. I mean, that's a terrible thing to say, but I just put it out there for the purposes of debate.
Well, maybe there are an element of society that buy too much for Christmas. Then you have all the others, another section of society who are extremely worried about putting a Christmas dinner on the table. And
30% food inflation, which I think is roughly what we've had over the years.
Yes, since to October 2023, 30% food inflation.
I mean, that's huge.
Since October 2019. That is a massive amount.
Yeah.
A huge amount. I mean, potatoes have gone up something like 263%.
Well, apparently that's going to be even worse, but nothing to do with either Brexit, do I say, or anything else. It's as I understand it, they've been knackered in the potato fields, but yes, we sidetrack. But look, there's another dimension though, isn't? Most times of the year, families will, you know, not come under the pressure that they come under at Christmas, and their own expectation. They want to do something for their kids. They want to sort of give them that little extra special thing. Of course. And I get that, I understand that. I could not imagine if I wasn't able to have really done things for my kids or whatever. And I went into debt when I was young, like
as
you.
We all did, yeah.
When we were doing that. But just correct me, sorry, something in my throat. How much profiteering is going on amongst retailers hiding behind this cost of living crisis?
Well, it's very difficult to say, but there is a big argument brewing about, for example, milk formula, that there are only 2 brands that produce milk formula, and you cannot not buy it, because if you can't breastfeed or you don't want to breastfeed, you have to have the milk formula. And they have kind of like a monopoly on the prices, and people are saying, well, we don't think this is correct, etc., etc. Now, a lot of people think that the supermarkets are artificially inflating the prices. Pushing back from that, the supermarkets are saying, look, we've got increased energy rates, we've got higher, you know, the national wage went up, we've got just the energy rates alone are bad, we've had Brexit, all sorts of things that are combining, and massive food inflation.
I think the cynic in me kind of says, if the governor of the Bank of England, who, by the way, I don't think has done a very good job, I think it's polite to say, in the last 2 years particularly, but he came out and he was basically saying, you know, forecourts of supermarkets, the petrol forecourts, were ripping the public off. And that kind of builds a mistrust in the supermarkets. I know it's not going to be the big driver, but is there a stronger case for regulation of things like
I think
supermarkets?
So. I noticed, funny you should say that, with petrol, that as soon as there was a conflict, and then as soon as there's, and I think, well, the oil tankers sometimes wait offshore, don't they, before they come in and refill, and they push up the prices, and it should be controlled. And I think that the supermarkets as well ought to come under greater scrutiny, because people are really suffering.
So what's the future? This is the biscuits they've been giving me today. I'm going to choke. Excuse me. What's the future looking like from an inflationary perspective on retail? Because I'm getting mixed signals. It's down to 4.6%, I think.
Yes, it is.
That just means prices are going up at 4.6%, not that they're coming down. But there's all these warnings. It's not over. The Bank of England seem to be talking us into doom and gloom again. Is more inflation coming down the road? And are retailers ready for that, do you think? Will they soak the margin up, or will they just pass it on to the consumer? They've
got to pass it on to the consumer in some ways. And the consumer will react by just not buying, or buying only the absolute essentials. I think that inflation could go up. We all hope that it goes down. But there are other ways to control inflation, so I'm told, than putting up the interest rates.
But let me turn this around a little bit, because is the consumer buying wisely? Are they still buying too much convenience food? You know, generally, would you say that there is an element that the consumer can do themselves when they go shopping, by perhaps not buying the vegetables that are pre-packed, buying the raw vegetables, things like that? Does that make a difference, or in the scheme of things, is it just not that significant?
Well, I think that they are doing what they can. 47% of all adults are buying less food. How much can you cut back? I mean, I've got some stats here, just very quickly, of how far things have gone up, right? Cheddar cheese has gone up 5%, crisps 11%, small box of tea 11%, instant coffee 5%, breakfast cereal 10%, white sliced bread 10%. These are all pretty much basics.
Well,
take out the crisps.
The measure is that the wages, the income, the benefits, if you're on benefit, they haven't gone up by that amount, have they?
I don't think that they have, and I think it needs to be enshrined. The Trussell Trust gave out last Christmas, every 8 seconds, an emergency box of food. It needs to be enshrined in law that we cover the cost of living, and that it is linked to inflation.
What should be enshrined in law?
It should be enshrined in law when we come to the budgets next.
Do you mean the
April,
benefits budget?
The benefits budgets next April, that we keep in line with inflation, because otherwise certain elements of society are just completely left behind. Other elements, as you said, that the restaurants are full, etc., etc. It's a tale of two cities.
No, you are right. It's a tale of two cities. I think the politician in would say, though, we've been talking through this show at great length about having to bring in foreign labour on special privileges, pay them actually less than the going rate here, because we can't fill the jobs here. So the best way out of this, surely, would be to get people back to work again. Yet we've got 6 million economically inactive. Some with great difficulties, others choice.
I have a view on that, and the view is that I have some friends of mine who are on benefits, and I say to them, why don't you take these jobs? And they say it's because once we take the jobs, all our benefits stop absolutely immediately. I don't understand that, because we've
got universal credit and it tapers. There's meant to be this taper system so that you don't lose all your benefits. I know that because I voted for it, so unless it's changed since I've left Parliament. Absolutely. If that exists, it's wrong. I agree. But I'm not sure that is the case, Lizzie.
Well, they find it. This is just a snapshot point of view that they find it too frightening to make that jump between the security of having everything paid for and going for a job. Obviously, I think working every time is much better. It's better for you psychologically. At the end of the day, it's got to be better for you working.
Yeah, of course it is.
It's better for the country, etc., etc. But somehow there is this fear stroke legislation that is a block to people coming off their benefits.
Well, clearly the government have got more to do to make sure that is definitely not the case, because the best way to get back to a decent standard of living is, of course, to get a well-paid job. Now, what I do accept is there are jobs out there that are subsidised by the taxpayer, and actually I think that's ridiculous. So an employer gets away paying a low wage because they know the government's going to top it up. That's only going to end one way, and that's badly. What we need is fairer wages and better wages. Lizzie, wonderful to talk to you.